Growing up in Mumbai, we were fond of going to nice restaurants. As judges, we were service members of clubs like the US Club. US is not United States, but the United Services Club, run by the Army, Navy, and Air Force. When we went to Allahabad, we realized that these appendages of urban life are no longer available in Allahabad. But in that little nest which we made our home, you realized how little you need in life to be happy. We made that, Kalpana and I made that our home, and we gave it our everything. And in the simplicity of Allahabad, the simplicity of the lawyers, the warmth of the judges, who didn't have the artificiality that sophistications in larger cities bring, I learnt a great deal of life in the heartland of India, which Uttar Pradesh is. I travelled across the length and breadth of Uttar Pradesh, made great friends on the bench, not off the bench, because as a judge you get isolated off the bench. But Allahabad really taught me such a great amount. It was a court of a sanctioned strength of 160 judges. When Chief Justice Thakur came for the sesquicentennial of the Allahabad High Court, and I introduced him to about 117 judges, which was my complement of judges at that time. He said, "Chief Justice, you have just proved me wrong." He had come from Patna, where there was a celebration going on. And he said, "You've just proved me wrong." And I said, "Chief, why have I proved you wrong?" He says, "I just said that there are so many judges in the Allahabad High Court that even the Chief Justice doesn't know all their names. And you know the name of every one of your colleagues." Well, what I didn't tell him was the secret. And the secret was that I had an album of photographs. And every morning over my morning cup of tea, I would keep one hand on the name and look at the photographs. In about a month or so, I had picked up all the names. But there was even a better way. There was even a better way to understand the names of judges. In the morning over a cup of tea, I would talk to all colleagues. Some colleague would tell me on a Monday morning, "Chief Saab, हम 80 किलोमीटर मोटरसाइकिल पे गए थे Sunday को." So I would figure out, I would say, this was the colleague who went 80 kilometers on a motorcycle on a Sunday. And then you fix the name. The more interesting part was when, during the course of the National Judicial Commission hearings before the Supreme Court, judges were not being confirmed. And a batch of my colleagues was due to end their tenure the next day. The file was with President Pranab Mukherjee. And I get a frantic call from my Registrar General asking me, he says, "There's a call from the President's house that we have this judge," I will not name the judge, "with an end which says Roman 4. And the President wants to know, why is this judge called Roman 4? What has happened to the first 3? For instance, if it is Dhananjay Chandrachud 4, what has happened to 1, 2, and 3? So we had to go back to the drawing board, find out whether they were still in service or otherwise, because there were multiple judges with the same names. But together with the bar, and how wrong your predilections about the bar can be, I was told that the bar of Allahabad can be very difficult to handle. But my experience about the bar at the Allahabad High Court was exactly to the contrary. It was a wonderfully amicable bar, a very respectful bar. But the one thing which the lawyers in Allahabad taught me is that I didn't have to be taught this in Mumbai, because the lawyers knew me as a lawyer, as a judge. They took me for granted and I took them for granted. But the one thing which I learnt in Allahabad was that so long as you are objective with the bar, they accept you for all your foibles. All that you have to do is to lift your pen when you have heard the argument and turn to your steno, and they will say, "Thank you, my lord." They did not push their point beyond a point. So that was the kind of bar which we had in the Allahabad High Court. Ready to support the judiciary, ready to support the judges, extremely supportive of the work which we did, and accepting of the change which we tried to bring about in the bar. And I had some very seasoned colleagues, Justice Vikram Nath is here, so if I had a problem, I would always go to my seasoned colleagues and say, "Yes, strike mita do." And sure as anything else, the strike would be over. Of course, I had my fair share of strikes in Allahabad as well. And sometimes you wonder, was I really responsible for this strike? You know, one thing which I'm sure a lot of you know, that lawyers' strikes really start with one reason, but then they continue to 5 or 6 other reasons which were not the reasons why the strike began. Very often lawyers would come stomping into my chamber at 4 o'clock complaining about something which had happened in the court. So I would order a cup of tea and they said, Chief Saab, ye nahi baat banti hai, aapko kuch karna hai. And I would say, दुश्मनी चाय के साथ तो नहीं है ना. We'd sit down, have a cup of tea, discuss things. And I think these learning lessons which I learned in Allahabad have taken me here as learning lessons for the Supreme Court. So when the members of the Supreme Court Bar Association would come, members of SCORA would come, I knew that I couldn't find solutions to every issue that the SCBA raised or the SCORA raised, but I could certainly give them a patient hearing. In the court, you realize that you cannot cure every injustice which comes into your plate every day as a judge. Some injustices are within the realm of the rule of law. Other injustices are beyond what the rule of law can lead a judge to a solution. Because we are not knight errants, as the Supreme Court once called a very distinguished Chief Justice of the Calcutta High Court. We are not knight errants. We are governed by law. But you realize that the healing in a court lies in your ability to hear. Your healing in court does not lie in your ability to grant relief. Lawyers know where the balance of a matter lies. Most lawyers accept that this is a difficult case. If they succeed, they are happy because probably, the judge